G'day folks, I wanted to take a moment, sit here and break down for you my personal goal of getting to $1,000 a month in dividend income by the time I'm 30 years old, at which I'm currently 28. I'm also going to break down my 200K portfolio to show you guys my current dividend income. But first, I wanted to hear from Mark Cuban. I found this video that I think really resonates with newer investors, of him talking about his initial investing days and how he thought about financial freedom. So for all the homework I do, and as always in the clarity of my transparency, hit that like button and let's jump right into this.
When I was researching for this, I'd come across that you'd read a book called How to Retire at Age 35.
Yep.
And it kind of reminds me of like today, do you know the whole FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early people?
Well, that's the same thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all these people now who are like engineers, they save money, they retire at 30 and live off ramen.
Yep.
So it sounds like you were the first one.
That's exactly right, man. Live like a student. Live like a student. You know, if I could save $100,000, interest rates were a lot higher then, right? So if I can get up to $250,000, then I'd have $25,000. Could I live off of that? Yeah, back then I thought I could live off of it. And that was my orientation, save up enough so I could retire and live like a student.
What I find fascinating is like, what drove that psychology? Because you seem like someone who loves to work, loves to build things. So why do you care about retiring?
Just because the way I was raised, my dad really didn't have his own time to himself, right? Every morning, he was at work or leaving for work at 7 a.m., 6 days a week. He got home at, noon or 1 on Saturdays, and that was half a day off. We loved to take vacations, but he was always at the beck and call of somebody else. And he would always instill in me, the most valuable asset you can ever possibly have is time. To me, just being able to just own my own time, like, until I got an iWatch, I hadn't worn a watch in 30 years. The day I sold Micro Solutions, I took off my watch and said I'd never wear a watch again because that signified I have to be somewhere and pay attention to time that other people set for me.
Welcome back, my passive income investors alike. Now this Mark Cuban video, I think really summarizes how most of us feel as beginner investors, because I believe if you can cross that 200 to 300K mark, that is when things become really life-changing, because if you can just get an 8% return, the average market return off 300K, you're looking at an annualized income of an extra $24,000 to $25,000 a year. But being a dividend-focused investor, I never want to have to draw against my stocks. I don't want to have to sell for capital gains to live on that. I always focus on the 4% rule, which generally is how much I'm bringing in off my current 200K stock portfolio. So I'm trying to get to $1,000 a month by the time I'm 30 years old. So what I would like to do right now for you is show you guys where I currently sit with my dividend income. And then what I'm going to do is break down some of the tools I have capable to me over the next couple years that I'm going to have to utilize, because I'm 28 now. I have roughly about 1.8 years remaining before I turn 30 years old. So let's get right into this and see how I'm going to achieve this goal. So what you're taking a look at right now is my current dividend income off my brokerage accounts and off my TFSA, where I get a huge chunk of my dividend income. I'm currently receiving $2,520 in Canadian income, and on the US side of the border, I'm bringing in $2,215. Now, I live in the world of monopoly money, so all of this is going to get converted to CAD. If you're in the US, obviously you'd have to be a little more aggressive to get to $1,000 a month, but let's just take this nonetheless, guys. So we're going to add that up with my other accounts. In my managed account, I am receiving $1,025 a month, but keep in mind $4,500 that I have invested in this account is from a line of credit, which kind of equates to about $400 of this dividend income, but I could literally pay that off tomorrow if I wanted. So I'm not really going to minus that out. I'm just going to keep it in here just to make things a little bit simpler. In my RRSP, my retirement account, I'm receiving $625 US a month. And then in my Royal Bank account, this doesn't show my dividend income, so I had to manually calculate this. But all in all, guys, if we take the US income, I'm currently receiving $2,841. Converted to CAD in this moment is worth $3,735. On the Canadian side of my income, I am getting $4,192.52. We're going to keep rounding these numbers to make it easier, obviously. So we add that up with the US income of the $3,735. That would give me a dividend income right now of $7,927 $7. I am almost to my goal already for the year of getting about $8,000 in annualized income. Some pretty beautiful stuff. If we divide that out over the current 12 months, I'm basically making an extra $660 a month off $200,000 invested. Now, this already is insanely life-changing because if you put rent and food aside, guys, that already covers all my basic expenses and utilities when we're talking about phone bills, internet, my car. So, I mean, this already is hugely life-changing for anybody. But how am I going to get this up? What are the capabilities I have to me right now? Well, let's talk about my growth stocks, because a lot of people think I'm generally a growth investor, but as I told you guys, I only focus on growth to fast track my portfolio over the near term so I can pull off capital gains and reinvest it into dividends. Whereas in this very moment, I have about 29% of my portfolio currently exposed to technology companies, which are pretty much all growth when we're talking about Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, and Tesla. And then I also have a little bit of MindMed making up about 4 or 5% of the portfolio in my healthcare sector here. So combine that all together, I got about 34% of my portfolio that really isn't making any income whatsoever. I mean, we could say, Apple and, Microsoft are making me some dividends, but when we add that up, I'm only getting 130 off Microsoft and 82 off Apple, like enough to not even make a real impact to the overall portfolio. So if I were to scale those down 100%, how much money would I have to invest into dividend stocks? Well, currently in this very market, and things have rallied since I calculated this, so it might be off by a couple $1,000. I currently have a market value on my growth stocks of about $64,000 to $65,000 in this very moment. So if I liquidated all of that and went 100% dividend stocks, I could make roughly on that 4% rule an extra $2,560 a month. Now we're going to start speaking in generalities here because obviously I could invest more into higher yielding stocks like the Canadian banks, real estate investment trusts, which would bring that up a little higher, heck, even utilities. But just to keep this relatively lowballed, because I do like buying things like Pepsi, J&J, things that pay lesser dividends but are longer term sustainable and also have bigger dividend increases over the long term. And this is again generalized because I don't actually plan on liquidating my entire growth stock positions, but I will be scaling them down progressively. But in this very moment, with what I have capable to me between the dividends I have now in these growth companies, if we just threw it all in dividend stocks, I would be able to get an annualized dividend income of roughly $10,487. Now that is already stupid, staggering, but it does not get me to my goal of $1,000 a month. I would need $12,000 in annualized income, which means I'm about $1,500 short. And there's only two tools that I now have capable to me, which is either I have to buy higher yielding stocks or I have to add more capital to the portfolio. So let's presume for my own actual capital, how much would I have to add to get an extra $1,500 a month off that 4% rule? I would have to come up with an extra $38,000 before I am 30 years old. And we're just gonna make this easy and say, I'm about 2 years out from that. So if we divide that by 2, I would have to come up with about $19,000 a year. If we divide that out over a 12-month period, I would have to bank an extra $1,583 a month, which is super excessive. Now, if I get super lucky, as many of you know, I generally contribute about $1,000 a month to the portfolio, so I'm still going to be shy of about $500 to $600 a month, and this is where I kind of rely on my growth stock. Now, this may not work out. You should consider subscribing to the channel because I'm going to document over the next 2 years if I'm able to even achieve this goal, but I'm hoping my growth stocks continue to outpace the market because that's what's going to make up for the money I'm not contributing to the portfolio. Because again, we have about $64,000 right now, in which if those keep growing at least at a 10% rate on 60K, guys, you're talking about an extra $6,000 a year or the equivalent of $500 a month. So that would actually make up for what I need to contribute here, guys. So $1,000 from me, $500 extra a month from growth, and I am set. Now, I'm hoping these growth stocks do better than that. I mean, they could explode, they could go down. There's a lot of discrepancies here, but in general, this is a fairly achievable goal for me. And I think, if I'm more aggressive on my work, I keep working on websites, I try and sell some websites. I mean, there's no reason I can't foresee myself getting here unless we do head into an epic recession. And again, I'm receiving a 4% yield right now, even with 64 $64,000 being in growth stocks because I have been aggressive on buying higher yielding stocks. Now, this is going to be a grind. It is going to be a hustle. And as Mark Cuban said, guys, you want to be living on ramen noodles. Dave Ramsey says, beans and rice, rice and beans. There is nothing easy about the path to financial freedom. You have to give up a solid 15 to 20 years of your life to achieve this kind of growth, at which I've already given up 6 years of living like I'm completely broke. But again, you guys are seeing the benefits from doing that. As Kevin O'Leary says, I think this is one of the most admirable things you could ever do in your life, because when you do this, you are not buying things anymore. You are buying yourself time. Just like Mark Cuban said, you don't need to look at your watch anymore, guys. You can live and do as you please because your general bills will be paid for. Now, obviously, I'm not retired off $1,000 a month. I told you guys my retirement date will be sometime between 35 and 40 years old, depending on how things kind of evolve. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing, because again, I will document this for you year over year. I don't plan on going anywhere. I'm still hustling up videos, but something different for today to hopefully get your mind off the election. But I'd love to know what you guys think in that comment section below. And also let me know what your general retirement date is. I know everybody's on a different time scale here. I started super young. I'm just trying to inspire the younger generation, but stay cool, stay awesome. And I look forward to catching you guys tomorrow.